I call to order the Pearl River County School District Special Call Meeting for the Board of Education held August 25th, 2021, beginning at 4:30 p.m. at our Endeavor campus. Mr. Jones, will you lead us in the invocation, please?
Country. We celebrate all these freedoms. What I pray that you keep your hand in protection, but those in the armed forces, especially in this area, to be safe. Lord, give them wisdom and insight in order to be able to avoid any danger of not getting. Lord, I do pray for the leaders of our country that you could guide them and lead them as only you can. Lord, I pray that you meet tonight, that we honor you with our thoughts and our actions, and that you continue to bless us. In this name, I pray.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Poulsen, will you lead us in the pledge?
Ready? Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Poulsen, and for the years of service. Thank you. And let the minutes reflect that there were no public comments shown. Do you have a motion to consider the agenda? Make a motion. Thank you for that motion, Ms. Burke. Ms. Burke. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier, for that second. Any discussion? I will call for a vote. All in favor, make note by saying aye. 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 Motion carries unanimously. Do I have a motion to consider reviewing the PRC School District Relaunch Plan? Thank you, Mr. Herron, for that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jones, for that second. And I know we're going to have plenty of discussion about that. Okay. Oh. I need to go all in favor, make note by saying aye. Aye. Oh, I'm sorry, we have that discussion. I'm getting so confused, I'm sorry. Okay, so we have the relaunch plan. Everybody, I believe, has a copy of that. So I've read over it thoroughly, and in order to try to keep some type of order to this, the first page is pretty much our current plan as it stands, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
As far as the personal protective equipment. Okay, so we're going to go the first page, and we'll start with like the first section, and we'll take it every section after, and we will reference the page numbers to make sure that we kind of stay on track. And my goal is to really take it section by section all the way through into the end, and review each portion. Go ahead.
One thing I'd like to emphasize on page 1, there's been some confusion in our community in reference to the suspension of in-person learning through August of 27th. And that suspension of in-person learning ends on August 27th. So that means we will return to in-person on Monday, August the 30th. That is not a decision that is being made tonight. That was already made through this meeting. The suspension is only through August 27th. In-person learning will begin Monday, August 3rd.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, first off, I did notice something that I would like added to the very first sentence, the relaunch plan. I wanted to run this out by the board just to see what you thought about it. It references here that the filing plan is fluid and may be amended at any time with updated information from the state agencies via executive order of the governor of Mississippi. So I'd like some type of verbiage added to that as to include the Board of Education as well, because we are now making decisions about this relaunch. It is not all governed by now. We're not taking action. So I would like our information to be added to that sentence. And I don't know that we really, that's not changing anything, that's just for informational purpose. Need any type of emotion, just have that added. To include us in that sentence.
Action.
Yeah, state agencies, you know, Cohort County School District, Board of Trustees, and executive order of the governor of Mississippi.
I think that statement was pertaining to if something comes up like tomorrow, that whatever, we wouldn't have to meet again since we declared it's not, we can always meet up with the plan. So that.
Well, the special call, man.
But if there's something that the order comes from the government, and we want to have to meet.
I'll say.
Yes, sir, that's the way it's intended.
Yeah, the other thing is this plan is a standard item on our agenda, so we have to do it every month anyway. So,
Right. But my theory on that was, if for some reason I get a phone call from Mr. Logan tonight and he says, hey, you know, we've had an increase in COVID cases, you considered it, but I see what you're saying, I can just call another special meeting. This is for outside. That's what you're saying. Okay. And also, I do want to make a note for those that are listening that I kind of wanted this to work almost like a workshop in the sense that we're going to talk through this. This is not a cut and dry school board meeting that we have agenda items that are going to be read off that we've reviewed and we'll have three votes. So there's going to be some dialogue that's needed in order for us to get to a point of agreement. And I want there to be open dialogue. Okay? All right. Okay. So face coverings. That's the first topic of discussion, and the school district has provided us 3 options to consider for face covering. And I do want to make the remark that we've been provided 3 options, but it's not limited to 3 options. If the board feels like there needs to be some adjustments made within these 3 options, we can do so. Right? So, any discussion? Does anyone have an opinion about the, I'm sure everybody's got opinions, but does anyone like to share their opinion about the face coverings? Let's start with somebody, option 1. And option 1 is pretty much what we're doing now, right? Is that it?
Option 1 is what we're doing. We did, there was some question on the 6 years of age and above. We removed that. Was concerned about determining a particular class who was 6 years of age, who wasn't, so we took that out. The City Department of Health and CDC recommends all students, regardless of the age, their school age. So we took the age out because that seemed to be an issue in previous conversations. That's the only difference in what we're doing currently.
Well, option 1 is one that we currently have in the plan, but we actually haven't done it yet because we have to approve that last meeting. So we hadn't had any kids in school at the time when the mask requirement had been in place. So that's what's in the plan. We actually had done it.
We have, if you remember on the special call meeting on Monday, we've been in school for like in 2 days, our cases that increased dramatically. So yes, the students were required to wear masks on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to the school year or suspended their person. We passed it on Monday, we gave them Tuesday to get accustomed to it. Wednesday, we require masks for our students.
Correct, on that Wednesday.
On that Wednesday, yes, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
So option 1 is our current plan. So we have option 2 and 3 as other suggestions from the administration as to how we can have our children return to school. Or we can continue with option 1.
Can I make a motion?
Go ahead and make a motion.
I'll make a motion to choose option 2, face covering as recommended.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to adopt option 2, face covering recommended. Do I have a second? Without a second, that motion is going to die on the table. That motion dies. Do I have any other motions?
I'd like to make a motion, I'd like to make a motion that we continue with option 1, requiring face masks on all our students and employees while school campuses. Like I said, we just put that in just recently, really hadn't had enough time to see if it's going to be effective or not. So we really need to, that's what we had approved over the last time. Just give it an opportunity to see if it actually works. Just kind of considering some of the things, and I know this is a very divisive issue. No matter what happens, people, somebody will not be happy with that. But just want to look at, there's a lot of data, you can find information on either side of the question of the discussion. But I just kind of want to think about what's happening around our community here right now. And we know we have other schools going to the north and south of us, they're doing things. Also, we try to prevent the spread of COVID in the schools. And both of those schools use the mandatory mask requirements. And thus far, as I know, they have not had to cancel in-person learning. And those are definitely want to keep in-person learning in place. So I would recommend, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend to use option 1.
Okay. So I have a motion on the table that we continue to uphold option 1 requiring face coverings. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jones, for that second. Any further discussions?
So this option 3 down here where it's face covering levels, is that something that if one of us makes a motion that we could actually add into option 1 or 2 to where it's not face coverings continuous or for board meeting to board meeting, but it's our schools looking at the data from Mississippi Department of Health and the CDC to decide whether or not to go red, yellow, or green.
Well, we have the motion to adopt this policy, this recommended option. And we have, right, we already have that motion, we have it seconded, so we have to have discussion in regards to that motion that's on. Right. So, you want to comment on that? We have.
Well, basically, I guess that was a comment, was a question, because we're hearing from all of our parents. I want our parents that are watching and listening to know that we're all listening to you. We are doing our due diligence, we're reading, we're asking doctors, we're asking nurses, we're asking parents, at least I am. We know that we got to get our kids back in school. I don't want to infringe on people's rights, but on the same end, we can infringe on those students who have rights to be protected as well. So I'll just wait and see how this motion plays out.
Mr. Harrell.
I'd like to talk about maybe opening up the opportunity for people to choose virtual while the mask mandate, if it's passed in place, to give people the option not to have to send their child to school with a mask. Well, that's virtual. Yeah, virtual's in place, but it's for the entire year. So, changing that would allow it to go till the mask mandate is lifted, if it's passed, or through the 9 weeks, or possibly the semester. I don't think if someone has chosen virtual because of their belief in masks, it should have to go the entire year. If we lift this thing next month, it will pass. I don't think it's fair for somebody to have to sit out the entire year because for 4 or 6 weeks we have to require them to send a child a mask.
Right. Now I have here, virtual is one of the, it is the very last section of this relaunch plan. So would you be okay with us addressing that in that virtual section? As like a, if you are, as long as the mask mandate is in place.
I'm not for both the mask mandates, but
Okay.
I think it's an infringement on people's rights.
Okay, but if it for some reason passes,
If it passes,
Then-
I'll look at that. That's a compromise.
okay, so I just want to make sure that your voice is heard, but would you be okay with that being in that section, in the virtual section? Just be sure to make a note there so that when we get to that spot, you add that in as a motion, if that's what we want.
Mr. Longman, how would that affect our teachers and the students that are in class to have a virtual option for our children that do not want to wear a mask, or the parents have chosen not to wear a mask? How will that impact learning? How will it impact our teachers in classrooms? Can you give us some insight into that?
It's really hard to determine until we know how many people take advantage of that option. We have, of course, the larger number of virtual students, the larger strain to put on virtual teaching, those kind of things. Also, it's according to what level. Virtual academy set up for our high school, so it's not going to be as big of a burden on our teaching staff because we have the academy in high school. But a larger burden on the school, elementary and middle school. Because your current teachers at elementary and middle school will have to provide that virtual to the students. So you really determine how many numbers we're talking about.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So that's, if in the current plan, it says, MSDH defines social distances as 3 feet of physical distance between individuals. I realize some classes you can achieve that, some classes you cannot achieve that. I know we only went a couple days, but my son told me of an instance where our kid said, "Can I sit in that chair over there, or that desk over there? It's way away." The teacher said, "No, can I take my mask off?" I'm not around anybody. No, I don't know what classroom it was, I wouldn't say it was, but is that going to be encouraged to get the masks off if we can maintain this? If voluntarily, if you want to take it off, and you've achieved the social distance, just like we were here. There was an email, about us wearing them while we were in the meeting. Well, I have no problem with going by what is currently passed, but I never was within 3 feet of that. I didn't have a mask on. So I feel like I'm well within the rights of the current plan we have. Is that going to flow over into the classroom?
I'll answer with a couple of statements. Number one, where social distancing can be achieved, that's the top priority in our classrooms. And there are some where it can be achieved, there are some where it cannot be achieved. There are some activities that occur in a classroom where collaboration between students, it might be social distance, And then they go into an activity where they're collaborating and they're closer to the 3 feet. So yes, I will tell you that social distancing, first and foremost, is going to be encouraged in our classrooms, most definitely. I'll also say this, that last year we had a mask mandate in effect all year. And we did not receive one complaint from a parent stating that their child was singled out, refused, the teacher refused to work with that child. We did not receive any. I think our staff, our teachers, our support staff, our administration, anytime a parent had an issue with whether wearing or not wearing, they communicated, they worked with that parent, and they looked for solutions for that student. And I would encourage anyone, if they have an issue like you described, to reach out to that school principal and engage in conversations about what can we do to make this work for everyone. Because at the end of the day, I think Mr. Fraser said, we got to get our kids back in school. Sure. We do understand that this is a very divisive issue, and we do understand that whatever decision that you make, not everyone is going to agree with you. But the goal, I think, that everybody agrees on, no matter which side of the mask issue you're on, I think everybody agrees we got to get back in school. And if this will allow us to get back into school, there's another piece, get to that minute. We will work with those students, we will work with those parents. Another issue that's been determined is concern about discipline in dealing with masks. Not one student spent time in ISD last year because they didn't have a mask on. They had conversations with those students and said, hey, work with us during this pandemic. The only time a student had an issue or an administrator had to deal with something is where a student became openly defiant. And of course, that's not a mask issue. That's an open defiance, disrespect issue. Our administrators are outstanding at having difficult conversations and doing it very professionally. So I have no concern over the issue that I know that our teachers and our staff are. The other piece that we need to understand about the mask mandate is when we get down to cohorts and quarantine, it's going to give you a lot more flexibility on quarantines. If everybody in that room is socially distanced by 3 feet or more, and if they're not, they're wearing a mask, we don't have to quarantine those students that have put close contact. It gives us more flexibility in the cohort situation. If we look at a team, look at a class that has 3 or more, and we know that those are cases, and we look at, kind of getting into the cohort piece, but we know that those cases aren't related to the classroom, or 2 of the 3 are not. They're from exposure at home. And we can say, okay, the exposure 2 of the 3 were at home, and we have masks on our students when they get within 3 feet. Now, we don't have to quarantine that entire class. It really opens up a lot of things for you. So those are just some things to consider. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, sir. I guess another part was me thinking that maybe if we express, again, if this passes, if it would be the same room based on the guidelines, not necessarily based on the person or the teacher, coach, or you see what I'm saying? Like, you can do that in this room, but you can do that in this room. If we would just be consistent with the plan, I think that's very important.
That's kind of what I had asked during our virtual meeting, because my personal vision is anytime we are congregating, moving through the halls, or anytime you cannot distance, 3 feet or greater, that the mask be worn. But if a child sits at a desk, if it is possible, by all means, if our classroom can accommodate them to be 3 feet apart, that it actually be encouraged to distance. Let's be 3 feet apart so that the masks can be taken off, so that we can abide by the rules. But yet take the masks off so that we can get the kids educated, we can see somebody's face. But like you were saying, the consistency is the problem, because some of our classrooms from what I asked, Mr. Long, you cannot accommodate that. We don't have the space
And I think you would refer back to the,
to the policy
policy.
at that point, say, right?
Um,
But we're encouraged, or flip it, and encourage it to be spaced so that the masks can be.
right, and I realize the burden is puts on every teacher and employee, and that's just, you know, policing is just where we are.
Well, in my opinion too, this should have never been dumped into our laps, and it's not our school district's fault, but I will hold record as saying that I don't feel like our governor should have left our school boards in this position. There's that.
I do have a problem in regards to the face covering. I've received, we have all, because we're typically all color copy on it, received numerous emails from parents and teachers alike. And a few of the teachers brought up, or somebody brought up N95 masks for teachers. Is that something that our district has looked at as far as supplying our teachers who are at a higher risk than our students for contracting COVID and having a very bad outcome from it? Our district purchasing some kind of N95, and it be, hey, it's available if a teacher so chooses to wear an N95. Is that something we look at for
Not that
teachers?
have purchased masks for students and teachers that are available in the lobbies. Masks have been required last year and this year for 3 days. We have not looked at purchasing N95.
Okay, and that was my next question is, will we still, I know last year that we had masks available for any student who did not come with a mask and or could not purchase a mask or whatever reason. We still have those available, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So as a student will not have to feel burdened in any way
Correct.
to purchase a mask. Is that something we will look into, the N95s, and have them available for teachers if they choose to wear those?
You can, if you, the board so chooses, that's something we can definitely look into.
Okay. Any other discussion in regards to the masks? Well, Mr. Jones.
Well, it's been brought up. Got a mandatory mask, or that infringes on the rights of students and faculty. I think that we've already got that in place with the rest of us. I mean, after issues, there's a minimum requirement that is there. So to say that it's a infringing on our rights, and that we're going to look at some of our other things that we have in place, or we do the same thing. I guess things.
Okay. So I will call for a vote to continue with option one, to restate that motion for mandated face masks. All in favor, make note by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. All right, under screening protocol. I did have a question. Under the screening protocol, are we going to be using the bus thermometers?
No, not in our current plan. Again, that is direction from CDC and SDH is one away from temperature. It's one of the, but it's not one of the essential screenings. We can have without fever. We also look back at our last year. The speech is here, and correct me if I'm wrong. Did we have one student, not one student tested or had a fever while trying to get on the school bus? I'll also say I think that's a credit to our parents, and I want to thank them because we asked them to screen their students at home before they went to the bus stop. So I've got to give the credit's due. I think that's our parents and our Relaunch plan, asking them to continue to do that process of screening your child before they come to school. I think that's, again, face coverings and masks gets the big attention because that's the most attention divisive issue. I think the most important thing is if you're sick, stay home. That is huge. I just want to encourage our parents, thank them for what they did last year, and encourage them to continue that process of screening your child before they go to the school bus or before you drop them off and pick up the drop off line. They have a fever, keep them home until that fever is falling to an appropriate level.
And are we taking temperatures at the school door, just to verify?
No, ma'am, we will have our temperature checks, thermometers in the lobby area for self-checking purposes. Again, for visitors that come in today, in that lobby, to self-check before they approach that receptionist area is hard. And that's again, they did a great job last year. We asked them to continue that process of self-checking.
Does anybody have any questions in regards to that screening section? Or does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make one more comment.
Go ahead.
So in regards to screening protocols, first of all, I do want to acknowledge that we've had a lot of contact, both positive and negative. And I just want to thank all those that have reached out to me during the time. But what I really want to say is the most important thing, to keep the schools open, we're going to really need the help of the community. And part of that is that screening protocol to make sure that students, when they come to school, that they are healthy and not in a position where they may be able to pass the virus on to somebody else. So that's probably one of the most critical things. That's how anything else. So those people that want to keep the school open and person learning available need to make sure that we minimize the virus that even come to the school first. So then we asking our public to please help us out in this regard. I know that the school board and administrators want to do everything possible to keep in-person learning. And certainly, this has been a challenge. But I think the other two, it can get our community behind us.
Thank you, Mr. Bridge. Anybody else have a comment? Okay. All right, on to the campus visitor protocol. My only comment about this, I had a note about social distancing, the very last bullet point. Anytime, just a recommendation, anytime social distances is mentioned, I feel like you should note on there 3 feet what that social distance is. And that the 3 feet social distancing is an MDH recommendation. Just for clarifying, everything throughout the relaunch plan should be informed and restated over and over. Does anybody have any comments or questions in regards to the campus visitor protocol? Sanitation and disinfectant of facilities, and this is in regards to the Janet King service. We'll look at that one first. Does anybody have any questions or comments or have any kind of issue with what's being done by Jamie. Sanitation and disinfection of the classrooms in regards to the employee's responsibility. The hand sanitizer units, it says to refill them, the teacher's responsible to refill those. Is that sanitizer provided by the school?
Yes, ma'am.
Does anybody have any questions or comments in regards to the teacher's responsibility? Okay. Next one is sanitation and disinfection of the classrooms. And this is the student's responsibility. I had a few questions about that. When a teacher is supposed to assist the teacher, when a student is supposed to assist the teacher in keeping the room disinfected and sanitized, what does that mean?
These, I also make note as I provided clarification on that. This is the same terminology we used in last year's plan. And what that looks like in your classes, where a class is fixing to leave that classroom, they're fixing to move to a different classroom. Paper towels, teacher provide, student will pass out to his fellow classmates. And we have disinfectant bottles, spray desk, and we ask the student to just clean their personal area prior to leaving their personal living area, their desk and stuff like that.
I have a question about that. What disinfectant, is that disinfectant that the school is providing?
Yes, ma'am. We worked with Jamie last year, and they provide disinfectant for each classroom and provide that information to our student. There's disinfectant bottles for the classroom.
Okay. And is that disinfectant safe for children to be touching?
Yes, ma'am.
And when it says and sanitize, the sanitize, is that hand sanitizer, or what is that? Disinfecting and sanitizing?
It's the spray bottle with a cleaner and sanitizer.
No, it is.
Sanitize solution.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or concerns about that? Right. Building and facility modifications. We're gonna, and I think this is a good one, be adding this. I think the face covering was new, right? Yes. Oh, I don't think, okay. So we're gonna have signages of social distancing, proper hygiene, and we're adding signage about face coverings.
Will the face covering sign state if social distancing is not achievable, or if you
You can, whatever board wishes on that, see the face covering signs that we have posted today is basically, please wear the face covering. But, we also have social distancing signs up as well. Our board was communicated, we can communicate.
Would you like to make a motion? And have it in a certain way?
yeah, just to, yeah, I'll make a motion to make the face covering sign state that, as in the requirement that, it requires social distancing, when social distancing of 3 feet is not. I don't know if you can say that on the sign. My motion can say that the face covering sign mentioned the 3 feet social distancing requirement.
Okay, we have a motion. Can somebody second that? If I don't have a second, the motion is on the table.
Because that's not saying face covering is required.
No, right, gotcha. You said something, okay. All right, motion dies. Okay. Any discussion or further comments in regards to the building facility modifications? Student meals. Does anybody have any comment, discussion about the student meals?
I do.
Go ahead.
If, I remember last year, was it the whole year they ate in there? If we're in a classroom that we cannot social distance, what is the difference between letting kids move to the cafeteria? I think it would help with attitude and morale when we go to the cafeteria. I'm not sure exactly how you can space out at a cafeteria table, or if there's enough time in the day to be able to take everybody through and space that out.
That's the issue, especially to middle school and high school. Another thing you run into is the cohorts. Anytime you're in a particular group of students for longer than 15 minutes, that becomes a cohort. So basically, let's just take a middle school lunch. All the sixth graders go to lunch. They're going to be in that cafeteria together for longer than 15 minutes. That would create that entire grade, make it a cohort. So keeping up with that as a cohort group, we're very, very strenuous on our administration. So it just limits the exposure and number of students. You go from, again, a grade of 300 kids in one building versus 25 in the classroom. Again, it kind of goes back to everything you're discussing here. Nothing is going to eliminate the spread. With how can we limit it? That is one way we can limit it, is by keeping our numbers down from very large group settings.
Could we revisit the student meals thing after we cohort?
Yeah, we can come back, can you remind me?
Sure.
I'll make a note after the report.
I mean,
There's nothing that says we have to do it in that order. Under cohort quarantine, I'll make a note. Revisit. Don't want to forget.
it's 50% chance that we're not.
I'm turning 50 one day, so I forget things.
Congratulations.
Okay. Under student transportation. There was one thing, and this is just just for informational purpose, there was a 3 feet thing there. So we just need to add on, 3 feet, and that's a MDH standard. That just needs to be removed, right? Fine. Yeah, second bullet. Does anybody have any other statements, comments about the student transportation?
If I do, if you're on, I guess social distance means between, right? So if you were to get on the bus with a sibling, and sit in the same seat as a sibling, you would still have to wear a mask, maintaining 3 feet away from them, even though you may have slept on the same.
Yes, if you sit in the same seat on a school bus, you're going to be within 3 feet.
Of a sibling that you might have spent the night the same day.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't really like that either. I think we do kind of move that around where it's not based on siblings sitting in the same seat, but
More exception. Guidelines, the more difficult it is.
I completely understand, but that's the can we open up when we pass an estimate.
Would you like to make a motion that siblings together and not be considered.
You know, as long as,
No. So any other comments or statements or about student transportation? Student assemblies and field trips. Any comments, questions, statements? Bottom line, it's gotta be approved by Mr. Or on an individual basis. Nothing? Okay, activities, athletic activities? Comments? Questions, statements? Okay, COVID quarantine guidelines. I had one thing noted here, and this is a question I actually received 2 of them from parents late in the afternoon. Their child had started running fever and they were during the day and they tested positive or they got notified late that afternoon. So if we have something that says notify, it says here, must notify the school. We need to tell them how to notify the school. And I think I saw on Facebook that y'all now have a distinct designated email for that. So that kind of needs to be added on who to notify. That's just a clerical thing, that's nothing. And again, that's stated in the second bullet. To notify the school, you need to add who to notify.
And just as a comment, this and also awareness, on this past Friday, the state issued another COVID-19 conservation law, which may be just reviewing something that's already been in place. But the order states all persons, including fully vaccinated individuals infected with COVID-19 must remain in the home or the appropriate residential location for 10 days, onset of illness, or from the date of a positive test for those who are asymptomatic. And then they also reminded individuals that it's also a misdemeanor, punishable fine for up to $500, 6 months, or prison. And if you have a disease that could result in mortality, could be punishable up to $5,000. So this is just a reminder of the state order that was signed this past Friday.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. Anybody else has any comments in regards to quarantine guidelines? We should put a little reference to Mississippi Department of Health. You know, that's a reference for them. They need to kind of read it. All right, cohort groups, cohort group quarantines. Does anyone have any discussion, comments in regards to cohorts?
we mentioned Mr. Frazier mentioned another 2 school districts in our county. I probably should know this, but are they going by groups similar to ours, or is it any at all? I hear, out on the street, not technically out on the street, out in the world, that they only send positive, only send positive kids home, positive people are not allowed to come to school. I just, anybody does that or just wrong. I know this is not required because this year nothing's required by the state. It's all in the us, but I was just curious as to how if you heard of that and how that's going this year. That's something.
I shared both plans from Poplar School District and Hickory School District with each of you. And all I can do is I'm scanning through one right now. I don't see anything mentioned in reference to cohort.
I think I do remember looking at that a while back. I did not see it. I tried to pull it up, just never could get it downloaded. You know,
What I have just, if their plans are up to date on the website, and I took them off and sent them to you guys. I think some of you remember. There's cohorts are not referenced in their plans.
I think the cohort, I can never say that word right. I don't think it's, I think it's something that's very hard for you guys to keep up. I think it adds a whole other level to this record keeping, or whatever you call it. I would like to see us maybe discuss if we need that or not. You know, I know the sports are coming up, that can affect a whole team, and you don't have anybody sick, but one kid, maybe or two kids. Just something that, I mean, I would like to be able to discuss that before a motion's made.
We weren't discussing anything.
If Mr. Lumber wants to answer that before we get going.
That's why we brought this to your attention for discussion. It's because it is something that we've noticed. A lot of cohort groups were impacted the first few days of school. And, I do agree with you that it is, we are following MSDH guidelines, which says 3 or more. So we don't quarantine a cohort group unless they have 3 tested positive. But I have worked with other school districts that their numbers are high as well with cohort groups. And this is something that we've had discussions about, and this is something that we've come up with that we feel like assist us in not having the quarantine groups that we feel like do not deem quarantine. And that is one of them. When you talk about 3 positive tests, the percentage of students that test positive in the classroom of 25, if it's 3 kids, that's a lot, it's a different percentage than 3 students that test positive in the band group of 75 kids. So that's what this does. It gives us the flexibility to evaluate a particular cohort when it reaches 3 and look at the positivity rate amongst the number of students that make up that cohort group, as well as evaluate the contact tracing. We can take those 3 students and we can evaluate, okay, where did they come into contact with COVID-19? They have a family member that tested positive during that week. There's a pretty good indication that spread occurred, or that infection occurred in the home. So that should not relate to an infection in the cohort group at school. So this will allow us to do. I do agree with you. I think our principals that are here this evening, and our directors that handle our cohort groups in their respective departments.
That their new titles.
COVID-19. It is taxing. It does take a lot of time. But it also, I'll give you a perfect example of naming groups. We had a group that, as we looked at it, in the first couple of days of school, the spread was happening in that cohort group. And because our high school administration acted quickly, we were able to get that group off campus quickly and limit that spread. So again, that would have been a cohort group that under this case, if we would have looked at it, we would have saw that, yeah, this spread's occurring at the school. And we would have cohorted there. I have a little bit of concern if you do completely away with the cohort groups and you're not able to quarantine a group that it's obvious there's spread occurring in the cohort. That's concerning to me.
You're saying if you're not allowed.
Correct. It is a lot of work. I can tell you, it is a lot of work. School administration and myself to keep up with this information. But I don't shy away from the work because if it'll keep our kids safe, I don't mind doing it.
Without having another plan here, this plan here, what is recommended change?
On the cohort,
Yes, sir.
our previous plan, if you had 3 positive cases, that cohort group was quarantined.
No matter what, this gives you the opportunity to dive
To
into that.
dive into what is the percentage number of students that test positive versus the number of students that make up the group. And also allows us to research where the contact tracing, talk to those individuals, talk to the parents of those students and find out where did they come in contact with the virus.
I'm guessing sometimes that's still
Sometimes, yes, but we, when our parents are pretty good, and we talk to our parents, and if our community can tell you this, and everybody in this room can tell you this, it's pretty easy to pinpoint where it comes from. If it enters your home, it's probably fixing to run through your home, so that's a pretty good indication. If we have a kid that's positive, and we know that the virus is in the home, it's a pretty good indication. If the virus is not, and there's been 3 kids test positive in a classroom, there's no exact science on this, but it's kind of an educated science, for lack of a better term.
And how does the cohort work with the employee?
All cohort groups, regardless of student or employee, it's the same. It's the same. If you are in a class, that teacher and those students are a cohort. If you're a team, sports team, coach, that team is a cohort.
I think answer everything. Anything else? Okay, you wanted to revisit meals. Mr. Harron, I made a note about after.
Well, we have to have a motion for.
No, there's no motion. We're just discussing, going through, motioning as we're doing things.
We are changing.
We are.
Let me say one other thing on cohort groups. I could be wrong. We have some administrators here. They might disagree with this statement. It is very difficult with cohort groups to keep up. I think on one side of it, they would feel relief. But I think what you're chancing is a possible outbreak in high numbers in your school and having to suspend in-person learning. It's a risk reward, and you've got to figure it out. And again, like this person said, I apologize that you have to make this decision. It's unfortunate, but you're having to look at medical issues and how it's going to impact your school.
Right.
And
Just to be perfectly honest, I don't know what the right call is. This particular thing. I think you presented this. If we're going to have one, this is probably the better way to go. I still don't know if this is the right way to go.
And I understand what you're getting at, because that was something I kind of thought a few weeks ago. We want to keep kids in school. Why are we sending home healthy kids?
Right.
Or why are we sending home teachers who happen to be in a cohort who now can't be in the classroom teaching? So I understand what you're getting at. My only theory on that, and I kind of said it during that virtual board meeting, is what we were doing at the beginning of this school year obviously just didn't work because the numbers show.
Right. I think ultimately the cohort group is what put us out of business. Now, why?
I don't think so. Because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the fact that we had that many teachers out with COVID possibly was
Possible.
a bigger issue. There was plenty of.
Just when you look at the, positives versus the quarantine,
Right.
I mean, it was a lot. And,
We could have still maintained school.
we may have just prolonged. I don't know.
The positive cases, the high number of positive cases over a 7-day period is what was alarming. Quarantining kids, yeah, that is difficult, because the kids aren't in school. You can still have school, you know, we talk, and I'll get into this in a minute too, because we talk about a hybrid schedule. And that is now an option for school districts, because we see the State Board of Education made that change like at the end of last school. So that is an option. But I said that because if you go to a hybrid schedule anytime in the future, half of your students are going to be at home one day anyway, and the other half come. So quarantining students is not really the reason to be shut down. The number of positive cases in our school for those first 7 days is very alarming.
And that's why we get this report, I've asked for it to be even more detailed. So it shows not only the positives, but I wanted to break down the positives per grade positives and the cohorts. So what is it affecting as a cohort, as well as the actual numbers of what was shown?
If you found the public, I don't think this last 2 weeks, anybody's been.
I think it goes back to Mr. Fraser's statement, this school board has got some very difficult decisions to make. And I think the solution, you're going to put some things in place to limit the spread. That limit is only going to be for 8 hours a day. Last time I checked, it's 24 hours a day. If we're going to get on top of this thing and move through the pandemic, it's going to be because our community steps up and limits the spread for the rest of the day. So you are correct.
Mr. Longley, one of our parents had emailed me and said that one of the issues that was requiring the negative test for a cohort member that is not showing symptoms is they're having trouble getting doctors to either run a test on or give them a letter. I've actually had several parents tell me that doctors won't even give them letters if they didn't show symptoms. They're trying to reserve test or whatever. This is just a lot. And I think the public needs to know that the deafening sound or the lack of sound in this room is the air being pulled out by decisions being made by people that are not medical experts. We have children, we have families. We're all American citizens, and we're trying to make the best decisions possible. And I can tell you without any reservation that I did not know how I was going to vote on the mask mandate until I got here, because I have wrestled with this. I'm listening to the emails, and someone said, we've got 20 emails on this end saying no, 20 emails from this end saying yes. And my husband said it's like grabbing a pit bull by both ears and expecting not to get hit one way or the other. I've got to stress to our public that our administration, we don't have a vote for this. We've never had a pandemic before. We're having to make this stuff up as we go. And I don't think anybody likes sitting in the hot seat that we're in, but it's the seat that we're in. But going back to that email, what can we do, Mr. Lumpkin, if we have one of our cohort members that is not showing symptoms that they need to go and get a test? What can we do to work with those students or those parents? Could we maybe have them call you or somebody at the school and say, okay, we went to this particular doctor, follow up with that doctor to see if that's the case, or, what is some suggestions?
Yeah, I just want to talk about that, in terms of the availability of testing. I know you just set up a full service COVID station at the hospital, right? And you don't have to come in and say, I got certain symptoms. You just drive up. They'll give you a test. You don't have to sit there and decide, well, explain to them what symptoms they have. They'll go ahead and give you a test. And then they'll let you wait. And they'll give you results. And depending on what the results are, then we provide you with options. Options to take a vaccine or go home. If you test positive, they also give you options to take treatment. Yeah, so it's not like it was before, where there was difficulty getting tested, getting in. Right now, they have a full service station there, you simply drive.
And that's wonderful, and I will gladly be so happy, for Pilot. Congratulations for that. I'm glad that they're there, but they will not be there for long. At some point, we're gonna have to figure that part out. I just want to bring it
And
up.
go back to that, that's what I was going to finish, but remember, we visit this every month, so we have to stay focused on day to day, and that's what I've said over and over to so many people I've spoken to, is works today, may not work tomorrow. And let me tell you, in 1 month, he picks up the phone and calls me tomorrow and says, we have a problem. We're back here for a special call. And I just want the public, I want the board to know that whatever it takes, I don't care how many times it takes it, this is uncharted water, nobody has the answer, so we're gonna look at it daily. One phone call, we need to revisit it. And that's exactly what I was gonna say is, it is true, if you call a doctor, I've had it happen, and they say, oh, you don't have any symptoms. We all know now, they used to have COVID without any symptoms. The hospital doesn't have that service available right now. And I think Mr. Maxey spoke about that in that WRG back. And they can call up at Hunter or just show up, but get some information, they can call up and get information about location, whatever. Okay, go ahead.
The negative test is only required after 7 days. You stay 10 days in quarantine. So we're not mandating they have a test. But they choose to.
And these days are consecutive days, calendar days, not school days. Correct.
So are we finished with the cohort?
I think we have, and this has changed.
What do you mean?
It would have to be accepted. It would have to be.
What I'm going to do, this is what's going to happen, is once we motion in between at the end, I'm just going to call for a final motion to adopt this relaunch plan as amended. So we're just going to amend it along with that. And that's the only way I can make it after our last virtual meeting is, and this is again, it's a day-by-day process, is there were so many different little discussions, it was hard, y'all were like random acts. Because everybody had their, the thing that they wanted to.
So you're saying we have.
Like, that whole dog thing, that dog went in shape, like 2 years, that's a giant. So this is the only method that I can really think of, and if it doesn't work, then y'all tell me something else that would work better, So if we're okay with that part, and there's no motions that need to be made and any further discussions, we can move on. Now, you did ask me to revisit the meals after.
It's dead.
We're good. Okay. So administrative leave for PRC school district employees.
Ms. Boss, if I could.
Go ahead, Mr.
Talk to you about, what we're providing right now and possibly what we're looking at in the future. We have been, let me take you back to some history on COVID leave. Back when the pandemic began, we had a federal act that provided 80 hours, 10 days, basically, COVID leave for our employees. 10 days. Once they use those 10 days, they're no more days. They can use those for any COVID-related incidents. We have a list of approved COVID-related instances. That federal act has since expired. It expired last year. When it expired, we wanted to provide something for our employees because our employees were still being quarantined by the district. The district is saying, you're quarantined, you can't come to work for these 10 days. we wanted to provide them with administrative leave with pay because we were telling them they couldn't come to work. We consulted with Jim Keith, we were able to do that because the government had issued a state of emergency. That state of emergency was set to expire back in August the 15th. Governor Reeves extended that state of emergency for 30 days, which takes it through what's on the plan here through September 14th. We don't have to do this today, but I want you to be thinking about it. So what that allows us to do is provide administrative leave for days that we have quarantined an employee from the district. This is eventually going to expire. You need to be thinking about how the district wants to handle leave moving forward, because whenever this expires, pretty good guess is the pandemic is not going to be expired by the time. Employees have reached out to me on a couple of occasions. One of them is even currently, we have employees that they received administrative leave for the time that they were quarantined in the district. Some have been hospitalized. They're past that time. They have to use their personal sick leave for the time past the quarantine. We're providing everything legally possible we can. And I'll say this, we're providing more than a lot of districts at this time. Not all districts are even providing administrative leave. We're doing everything we can legally. When this expires, you're not going to have those situations, but you're going to have situations where you require district quarantine and administrative leave is not available because the state of emergency has expired. There's a couple of things to be thinking about. Again, we're going to meet on September the 9th, or regular meetings, so we don't have to do this tonight. Just be thinking. Some school districts that do not provide administrative leave for their employees have provided additional sick days to their employees. One district over the past week that provided 4 additional days to their employees in the district. Another one provided 10. Again, it's not on top of administrative leave. They don't do administrative leave like we do. Actually, administrative leave provides more benefits than giving somebody 10 days. If you get quarantined twice for the school year, you're going to go over 10 days. Every time we're quarantined, you get administrative leave. So ours really works out in favor of the employee. When that state of emergency expires, you have to make a decision in reference to how we're going to deal with employees in the quarantine. So again, the state law requires, I believe, 7, Mr. Burleson can correct me if I'm wrong. The state requires 7 sick days and 2 personal. But the board can provide additional. You can't do it for an individual employee. It has to be across the board. So that's another thing you got to think about. You give 10 days, you give them 10 days in their district. And they can use it any way they want. It's not designated for COVID. It's just additional days that you provide them. And you can do it for 1 year only. Okay? Those are some things that I'm just asking you to be thinking about, because that is going to hit your plate sooner or later in reference to administrative leave.
Is our schools reaching out to our legislators to let them, because I'm sure they're aware of this expiration of the administrative leave. Or is the school in contact with our legislators to see if we can get that word up to our governor to let them know that we need some help on that?
They're very aware of this, and I think they have already expressed that. And I think that's when you saw the extension document. I think that's when you saw it.
I think what we have to look at is sick is sick. Quarantine is something we did,
Correct.
and that's going to fall on us, and in my opinion, we're not there yet. But when we tell an employee ready and willing to get their car and come to work, that no, you can't come here. That's on us.
And that's correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Under this, I want to bring up the N95 masks again. So, again, considering we're asking teachers to come to work, I feel it's very important that we at least try to provide them with a mask. And I don't know if somebody would be willing to go ahead and make that motion for me, because we did receive an email from a teacher. We've had plenty of teachers reach out to us. And I'm so appreciative that they continue to come to work in these certain times. And I feel the same way. We're asking them to go home, we're asking them to come to work, we're asking them to, educate virtually, and they stepped up to the plate, every day. So, I really would like, I think it would be a great gesture from us to at least provide them with one N95 mask. If they so choose to wear it, great. It's not going to be a huge investment in the district. They want to come get it from the office, they can get it, and issue their mask. And if they don't want it,
Mr. Lonkin, have you had any teachers complain about not being provided with masks or the proper things that they need to go to school with?
I did receive probably the same email as well, had a teacher reach out and ask about N95. But I have not received any complaints. It's all last year. But, availability, if they're available to purchase those, I don't see any issue with the availability there. To get them. And like Ms. Ball said,
something to be a great gesture.
Well, I would say if somebody wanted, they could put a request in, there's a sheet or whatever, and then superintendent can make that.
What you recommend we would supply those for the entire school term, for those masks, you just can't keep wearing them. So it just be a one-time.
I can tell you that nurses are not wearing them once, they're wearing them for a long time. I know it's not an ideal situation, but I think that it would be a good gesture that the school has some type of, small stockpile. So that if a teacher sees, feels they need that, we're to school that we have it. Not, it may be covered under the ESSER ones, if we have any of that. Somehow it shouldn't be a huge expense. But if not, that's great. I'm beating the horse. I did receive that email and I did reach out to the board when we had that teacher. So I didn't feel like that was a big request.
I don't, it's the board on issue, motion passed, they look into that, just looking into the availability of it, and appreciate the request, and we try to make it possible for you. I don't know, should be looking into it. I don't know. Last year's stuff, it might be more valuable. I'll definitely look into it. Mr. Robinson, look into it. I can tell you this, if the teacher comes up and says, I need an N95, we're going to try to.
There you go. That's what that makes me.
That's not going to be an issue for us.
Okay, does anybody else have anything under the administrative leave section? Okay, communication of the 2021-2022 PRC School District Relaunch Plan. One thing is back to like where it says website, this is just clerical stuff again, is can we list the website? It says that you're going to post it on the website. Anywhere it says that, just go ahead, drop the link there on that spot. And then social medias. Can you clarify which one? And I'm assuming it would be the school district's Facebook. I don't want parents getting on and looking on the high school one or the middle school one. Which one?
I think they share it usually.
They do, but I just want it, in my opinion, it just needs to be clear, that they can reference this for all information necessary, where they can. Does anybody else have any comments? In regards to communication? All right, virtual distant learning option. Does anybody have any comments?
I would like us to look at this and maybe change it in terms of that option.
Okay.
I think last school year it was by semester. Is that right?
It's why currently on our launch plan is the commitment for.
A semester.
Currently is for 1 semester.
Currently it's semester. I'm sorry, I thought it was currently. So if someone were to want to change that now
To
from traditional to virtual,
now.
now after we've,
Is there anything in our relaunch plan that would limit someone from applying for virtual learning now?
We have people this week that have applied, so we're still taking in those applications and looking at them.
I knew you had to choose at some point. I just didn't know if that what window that was. And
We did have a set date, but they've been coming in constantly, just different various reasons, and doctor notes come in, so we're still looking at all of those applications that come through.
So you have to apply and be approved for that?
In K through 8, correct?
K through 8 requires medical documentation. They all apply so that we know that they're wanting to switch to the virtual option. And then we go through the process. We do have it does say in our plan that we have a committee that looks at their application. Majority of them are approved easily,
But K through 8 requires a medical documentation. I would like to look at that. I know it adds another level. This thing, and nobody, or administration likes virtual properly, and I feel like with the climate we're in, the mandates we put in place, I think we need to offer. I would like some discussion on that again before I make a motion. I hope I'll make the motion, just like to see what it looks like and give Mr. Lumpkins.
I'll refer back to Ms. Burge, and she asked me what impact that would have. We wouldn't know until those applications start coming in. I can't answer what impact that would be.
Yes, sir.
Again, at the high school level, no impact. Middle school and elementary, our current teachers are going to have to pick that up. To teach the traditional kids as well as the virtual kids at the same time. So there would be an impact. Just don't know how large of an impact. Are we talking about 10 kids? Are we talking about 210 kids?
Right.
That would determine the impact.
I would say, can we, is there you said there was a deadline on that application. What was it?
August, it was like first week of August.
Maybe the first step would be extending that deadline. And let's look at the applications, because we're meeting in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
So I will make a motion on extending that deadline, like maybe the date that you think you would be able to look at that, a date to close that you would be able to look at it before the next board meeting. So if it, before meeting is
September
9th. I don't know how long maybe that can be open until through the 3rd. That gives us a week and a half. Okay. And then if we look at the 9th, we want to end it or put a, okay. I'll make a motion to suspend the deadline of virtual learning this semester.
We have a motion on the table, Mr. Harris, and a second by Ms. Burge. Any further discussion? It's suspended.
Oh, suspended.
So we'll look at that, to me, application, process is still.
And I think
in place.
that's more than fair coming from Mr. Perry's standpoint on mass mandates. There's going to be parents that are not comfortable with that, and I think they should be given the fair right to pull their children and still be able to have a talk at school, at home, and doing that, I feel like if we just keep doing this stuff with little bites, and we see how it's working out for our administration, for our students, for our parents, we'll get this thing right, if we just keep tugging along,
Okay, thank you.
First of all, this does have a stop point for a student not succeeding virtually when they come back to in person. Is that still there?
Is that still in there at the end of the 9 weeks? They have to be.
I think
We just did semester long.
What we had last year is if the child was failing, virtual was not an option. Did you ask for what? Oh, okay.
So at the end of the first semester, current plan, that child is staying in the classes. If they are not, well, it had enough reason. We already had that in place.
I just wonder, on that, on the current application, what does it state about medical from K through 8?
K through 8 requires medical documentation.
Okay, so medical documentation, I guess that can be determined any way.
You just have to go to your general physician, and that general physician provides the school with a letter recommending that the student be allowed to participate in virtual learning due to a medical condition. It's not very hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one.
Well, I just don't know if that's the goal I'm trying to.
You're trying to just let them have virtual learning if
If they so choose, because if I can go to a medical doctor and say, I don't believe it's right, it's masks, they're not going to, I don't think.
And that's true, and they say it's easy to get, I can tell you from experience. I went to my doctor, and I was told that, and I want to be careful how I say this, no doctor in that system could write that. Because I have asthma, I have a heart condition, and I was having a difficult time, and I'm medicated, that lowers my blood pressure with medicine. Every time I'd squat or anything, and I'd stand up with the mask, I was dizzy, and I was having a very hard time, and I was there you go. So and they still would not write me waivers.
Well, I'd like to amend my.
Well, we have to let that one die. No, you can amend it, okay, go ahead.
Can I go ahead and make a motion
Yeah, just
to amend my
amend.
motion to remove the medical documentation
Okay,
from the application?
so you just.
Or-
You just want them to be able to do virtual learning if they so choose, period.
I still say,
Because, sorry,
no.
we'll talk about it now. in a second. Because you go to, you put the doctor in that spot.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And there's some people who just are scared. And it's not necessarily they don't want to mask, they just don't think the kid is in school. So that's my.
So just kind of simplify, suspend the virtual learning deadline and medical requirement.
Yes.
I want to survey.
Well, for now, we can look at it at the next meeting and add, either cut it off, change the deadline, change the requirements.
Okay, wait, I want to clarify, but everything else remains the same, Mr. Long, right? You have on there, everything else is the same, it's just those two.
Suspend virtual learning deadline and medical requirement.
Everything.
For approval.
Because the thing is, if they're not passing, you want them to have to come back. Is that, you want everything else?
If they're not passing, if they're not passing in 2 weeks, 3 weeks of school, that's a bigger problem. But as far as,
Everything else in that.
yeah, everything else in
To
that,
stay the same.
yeah. Yeah, but there needs to be intervention, whether it gets passing here or not here. So, yeah, that's the same.
Mr. Logan. We have
Anybody?
one smiling over there.
Anybody like to speak in reference to the medical? The amendment is on the floor is suspending virtual learning deadline and medical requirement for approval into virtual learning.
Yes, sir.
I think everybody knows it, but just for the camera as well, just identify yourself and your position in the school district.
Kimberly Albert, principal of the high school. We began the year not asking for medical documentation. That is something that myself and my administration team believes that we want to develop a full functioning virtual academy that's a part of PRC High School that is long-standing and is a part of who we come from this community. So because that is our vision, we did not require that. It works for our high school. So I'm not going to speak about it in medical documentation. It's not my lane, and I'll those who are passionate about speak about that. But I will speak about what I feel like we need to be aware of as a board is that when we leave an open door for credit bearing courses, there are repercussions. The current program that we utilize and we contract with for our high school virtual academy, which we've been very pleased with thus far, you cannot transfer grades. It's not allowed. So if the student is in U.S. history right now, transfers to U.S. history on grade results, grades do not transfer, the student starts over.
Wait, say that again?
Our grades do not transfer to this program. It is built so that you have students enrolled day one. So we are allowing kids to enter 3 weeks late because we took the deadline. I appreciate the dropping extension, we're not allowed about that. We will have them, but there is a required date that we can no longer, because it's credit bearing courses, and they have earned hours. So I just need y'all to understand, this is something that we can say today, but we definitely have to revisit in September after we gather. There's a hard date that we're not allowed to switch kids back, and there is no back and forth. And there is, because we're running. That's what I'm telling you, when we talk again, I just want to kind of remind them, because we contracted with grade results for grades 6 through 12 this year, then it doesn't matter the flip flop. So once a parent, and I'm communicating with my parents, I'm trying to understand that, once you take the plunge 2 weeks into school, your classwork can't transfer, it's a different entity. And you can't come back. And they're good with that, they're signing and agreeing to that. The semester, because that's what my credits are. So our credits are semester credits. So I just want you all to hear that that's going to be another kind of hurdle for us because we're not doing it on Google Classroom or teachers. I'm very excited about our partnership with Great Results and what they're going to offer for our students who are working. And I think that will be a great platform that we utilize for doctoral prevention for years to come. But there is that hurdle. It is meant to be. It's all inclusive for that student to go from day 1 of the semester to day 90 of the semester. And when they enter at day 20, that day 20 doesn't. And that's not us to excuse them or exempt them from. And again, our parents so far, I don't know if you all understand that, but I'm changing things you said thus far. But next month I'll be happy to discuss.
Well, and that gives us reason not to come back for the within the semester.
But I agree with you that I think our commission have another option if there is a mask. And I agree, but I think that our parents need to understand that it is a semester. And that's my high.
So maybe we need to look at that, like the K-8 or high school separately, and always consider it 6-12.
I think, and that's why Mr. White and Mr. Alexander, we can meet with great results and get those finalized dates. We haven't had to yet. Because we knew it's out there, but it's come. But if we're gonna make a more decision, kind of open it wide open, we need that to be included, that there is a requirement. But we can't enroll students in the semester past this date. So we can bring that to y'all next time.
Mr. Frazier.
Yeah, I have another question. So we had a student that enrolled virtually, and then for some reason that student's not doing well and decides to go back in person learning because they're failing, I would say. Say they was in there for 30 days or 45 days and they failed, so they have to come back in person learning. What happens to that 45 days of learning that they participated in virtually?
So they can't come back in until the semester.
So they had to wait to do.
And that was their commitment they signed.
I thought the city of someone was actually failing virtually, they would have to come back in person.
At the semester, last year was 9 weeks, so remember we had made several months about. So last year was a 9 weeks, this year is a semester.
So you locked in.
You're locked in once you make that choice. And we do spend time, our counselors, myself, Ms. Mitchell, who's our admin over virtual learning, Ms. White, Dr. Bowman, Stephanie, we all make sure we're all parents management.
And I'm so glad you asked that question. Because that goes back to something I've said over and over and over. We're not educators, nor are our parents. And they want you to be the educators, and they really say they want the kids in school. And just like we said, we're not doctors, we're making decisions about the medical well-being, the education of students. So we've got to rely on our school district and our professionals. We've got to rely on professionals to do what they do, and trusting that. And I've done a fabulous job because we would have never known that there was an end date. And there's so many things that are going on behind the scenes that the general public doesn't know. We may know a little bit more about it because we're informed about it. But so much that goes on that we don't even know. And I'm grateful when you asked that question, because that was a very important point. Okay, so now that we cleared that up, as far as.
I'm gonna move past some people to speak.
Wait, what was that?
We have some people to speak, so.
Also, from the middle school, I will say, two things. For K decision made on that. Parent, two students have exemption from that. They're for valid reasons, so two of my kids don't, because they don't have no conditions that acquire. Two of my kids did, went to the doctors, and requested that, we're getting a letter, and they both have an exemption, right? The reason that we feel strong, I feel strong, okay, when it comes to medical attention, those that age group learns way better. I'm not trying to quantify it, way better in the classroom with the teacher. A high school student has an maturity level to manage themselves in a virtual setting. An elementary middle school student, we have not seen that. We have not seen that in the past 2 weeks. We've seen some students do amazing. We've also seen a lot of students struggle. So when it comes to the medical difference, for me, about medical reasons should allow you to have that exemption or to have a child virtual. I think the biggest thing with the virtual shift, if we make that for 6-12, really 6-8, is the clarification to parents of what that means. It's often described that if you transfer out, you are committed for a semester. So if in a month we change some of these things, they're still committed for a semester. Also, clarification that having a school goes 4 weeks, and they're going to have 4 weeks worth of work to get back to where they are.
Anybody else?
I agree with Mr. Alexander, as well, but, I guess my concern is, with not knowing the numbers, like what Mr. Pumpkin said, which is, it's going to create a scheduling stress, at the elementary setting. Just providing a structure in those, students that are in virtual learning, come a long way. We've come a long way in the past 2 weeks. If we're all doing virtual learning right now, and that would be one of the instructional.
Another thing you gotta remember that is very important to middle school and high school students is the Mississippi High School Activities Association states that if you are 100% virtual, you cannot participate in extracurricular activities. Parents need to understand that requirement from the Mississippi High School Activities Association as well.
And I need a week just to process that. It's a lot.
I do want to say real quick, we did just come off our workshop, which we were provided with, just for the public information, our assessments, the numbers and the effect that COVID virtual learning has taken on our students. And the numbers and data does not lie. The numbers are showing that it is negatively affecting the education of our students. Now, I'll go back to what I said a couple more meetings ago. If we cannot have students, if they're not healthy, if we don't have healthy students, we don't have healthy teachers, we can't educate. So our number one goal is the health and well-being of all our adults. But after that, and right after that, is to educate our children. And so if your kids can be in school, they need to be in school. Because the numbers are showing virtual learning versus in-person education, there is a vast difference between the two.
And I would ask our parents not to make a hasty decision, to try it with us, just like we are trying things and we're beating this out, try it with us for a few weeks with the mask and see if that works before you make a hasty decision for your child out of school. They need their friends, they need their teachers, they need to be in school. So I just ask our parents again, don't make a hasty decision. And try it out with us for a few weeks and let's see where it takes us.
Did you get all the information?
Think so.
So we have an amended motion on the table. And it is the medical portion. That's why I'm going to get her to read it back.
Motion to amend the virtual learning plan, suspending the application deadline.
And we're going to call it until Wednesday.
Just enough. Make the motion for suspending.
That's right.
And then amend it to be another. That's what we're
So,
Okay, we're within the other one. Wow, right? Okay, so that's fine. But you're gonna call a vote on the amendment, there's no motion on the amendment. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so second,
no.
You made a motion to amend.
Okay. And she seconded it.
You're right.
Okay, so, and you stand.
So it's two separate motions. We can't go,
gotcha.
okay. I'm sorry. I mean,
So you're still good with that. Not that you're, I'm saying, make sure that was exactly.
roll is over two.
Okay, so I have a motion to amend the medical waiver. We're gonna vote on that. All in favor, make note by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we have 4 ayes, 1 opposed, motion carries. And just to clarify, that is only until
Two
the
weeks.
meeting, that board meeting, just for clarification. Okay, so we're going to vote on the very first motion, which was to
Suspend the application deadline.
suspend the application for the virtual learning deadline. All in favor, make it by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. You're good?
And please, I know several of us will remember, but please note to bring that back, September 9th.
Well, I'm going to include it in the relaunch plan. This is all part of the relaunch plan. So you'll have additional bullets under the virtual learning option piece here. It's going to state that is suspended at this time to apply for virtual learning. Medical requirement is suspended at this time. So you'll review this every month.
And they will be able to explain to those parents if they decide to go virtual, that what it means in terms of their caretaker, what you mentioned already, and you're locked into the end of the semester.
That will be the application process.
Explain.
Still as a technical process.
Trust that, please, yes.
All right, so that's the virtual, and after that, it's just our calendar. Okay, let's talk about the calendar, I mean, that's just attached. The times, the 2021 on page 7, 22 PRC times, that has been changed. Elementary will start at 8:45 and end at 3:45. Middle school will now be 7:20 to 2:08 p.m. And then high school will be 7:20 until 2:11 p.m. Those two have changed, and the Endeavor School will be the same at 8:15 to 2:30. So Mr. Lumsden, do you want to give a brief description of why you made this adjustment?
This goes back to the relaunch plan, to no students in break times, eliminating those large group areas. So the high school is called the R period. Students gathering the schedule. And Mr. Alexander, y'all call it R as well?
We call it to include different.
T what?
TNT.
TNT, so those are the two periods. I think it's very accurate. So it goes those two periods from the schedule, it's not.
Wait, it removes TNT?
Correct.
Can you tell us about TNT?
All right, so actually the time that we have is very similar to the name RRTNT, there's a mediation time. It was what is, that was something it looks different this year for us anyway, there's still extra time built from lunch period. Or some of that break time for kids and we to omit some of that.
I have a question real quick, before we take this along and ask the administrators. For break time, during this adjusted time, what are we doing so that the kids can still socialize or have time to take a break? How's the middle school process?
I'll be honest, the biggest time that I still don't get lunch, and if you do lunch somewhere, they'll have a group of kids that are most of the evening. As far as, outside time, large groups.
Yeah, for us, it's the same, what we, met and talked about, because today, she's been special. Is we just started talking through, like, encouraging our high school teachers who don't typically do things like run breaks or, stop and reflect and relax moments. That's typically things you see in elementary classroom. We're gonna have to do that. Because this year, what our recommendation is currently on the table is to remove break. We didn't have break last year, because students were not in school. So we're moving, last year, it's easy to say, well, we didn't break last year, but last year they were only with us, until right. And so this is a full day, our break,
But they do get paid.
they get a little earlier now, because we're just simply removing, our break time. But it will be a challenge, we've got to embed in our time for many classes, just some time to stop and so the kids get some type of refreshment in their mental state, of course. So for us, is our lunchtime, breakfast time is in the classrooms, but for us, and I'm only speaking for high school because it's not at the middle school, is at breakfast time and lunchtime is free time, so they can have their cell phones out. They can be hanging out with their friends, they can sit where they want to eat with, in that group. It goes back to that plan, and we can't work gatherings. And we don't love that. Right, no, I'm sure y'all are very well aware. I started here, and I wasn't all about us having to do trades, regulars, right?
That's why we're back. That's why I asked that question. We've been here since, well, I got here a little bit later during lunch. We've been here, I've been here since 12:30. And I like it. But I'm talking, you know what I'm saying? It's 6:30. And we've been in this room with this little group. It becomes tasking. So that's why I was curious. And I think elementary last year rotated the times outside a little bit with some of the, are you gonna do that so they get some outside time?
They are going to recess by their cohort group,
By their
group in their activity time. They do.
Yeah, outside time.
So does this?
And for us,
Possible. And
Wait, what was the
It
question?
doesn't eliminate, it just, it limits the spread because it eliminates the large student gathering.
it couldn't be considered because everybody was in, right?
Right.
At the same time,
In all school session.
per grade or?
Middle school, third grade, high school.
so then they can.
So that's, okay.
Okay. So, we had explanation on the time adjustment. Any other comments, questions concerning about that? Okay, that looks like it's a wrap. So I'm gonna need a motion to adopt the 2021-2022 relaunch plan as amended.
Motion?
Thank you for that motion, Ms. Burris. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fraser, for that second. Any further discussion?
I just noticed the bell schedule. I guess that's-
Where do you see those?
I don't think it's,
All that.
It's just a break.
Just talking.
Schedule.
yeah, so it didn't cover it. I just saw it. Consider.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? With that being said, I will call for a vote. All in favor, make it known by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimous. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Jones, for that motion, and thank you, Mr. Herron, for that second. Any discussion? I think so.